Moving on, guys. So we've got Helena Bonham Carter and we've got Thomas Jane. Both have had very interesting takes about the concept of cancel culture. I know that term is stupid, but we're going to talk a little bit about it. So basically,
well, it's like the term cancel culture. Yes, it's stupid, but what else are we going to call it? Is there something better?
And it is like, to me, like these feel more authentic because they kind of have careers. Like it's when the people who haven't been relevant in 10 years talk about it that I laugh
because they have less to lose from talking openly about it.
It feels like a product when they talk about it. So it says Helena Bonham Carter rails against cancel culture and defends J.K. Rowling and the vindicated Johnny Depp. Again, is it Rowling or Rowling? We always screw that up.
I think it's Rowling.
That's the consensus.
So I'm going to read this quote from her. She says, "It's horrendous. A load of bullocks. I think she's been hounded," Bonham Carter said about Rowling. "It's been taken to the extreme. The judgmentalism of people. She's allowed her opinion, particularly if she suffered abuse. Everybody carries their own history of trauma and forms their opinions from that trauma. And you have to respect where people come from and their pain." I don't know if I necessarily like the idea of framing it all around the concept of trauma, but
this is what's so upsetting. Like, even when they're trying to get the back of their homies, they just still gotta use all this language.
Trauma?
It's like, you don't understand her trauma.
The quickest way to cash me out of any situation is to use the buzzwords, like, because then it feels like even Kim Kardashian managed to not use a ton of, like, that was phrased in a way that didn't have all of the main buzzwords. Maybe that's like what the true professional,
except for accountability.
Yeah, even that, but it didn't feel out of place where she used it. Like maybe like the true heroes of like that profession of PR agencies now are the ones that learn how to do it without using those 5 to 10 buzzwords that we have to hear in every article 100 times. Right? Mm-hmm. So she defends him and she defends Johnny Depp, who he is the godfather of 2 of her children.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
And the funny thing is like that's like what she had to say that after we just had 130 organizations come out in favor of Amber Heard because reality is too much of a struggle for people to deal with these days.
But those organizations that made that open letter are essentially skeleton orgs. They don't really exist. They're just money laundering. Once again, they have no purpose. I don't think that you could account for all of their expenses.
I also find the Bonham Carter thing falls in line with Ray Fiennes and Rory Cochrane, mm-hmm. and all of it seems like the older stars are the actual tolerant ones. And the young stars, the ones that have no appetite for being tolerant of viewpoints other than rigid conformity.
It's because they're still getting their paper, right?
Here's one point that Bonham Carter made I kind of disagree with. She criticized the notion that someone's personal life should impact their career. Do you ban a genius for their sexual practices? There would be millions of people who, if you looked closely enough at their personal life, you would disqualify them. You can't ban people. Yeah. I hate cancel culture. It's become hysterical, and there is a witch hunt and a lack of understanding. So
I think that's intentionally too vague.
Yeah, because you're opening yourself up to the criticism that you're not addressing sexual misconduct.
Yeah.
You're not addressing the abuses that have happened. People should be accountable for those. And then just the idea in general that your personal life should not impact your career, it seems childish and unrealistic because that's inevitable.
Yeah. I need more details to know what you mean by that. Like, here's the thing.
This kind of giving like Piers Morgan, like if you use the word cancel culture, then you get enough people to listen.
We do have a society where a lot of people were incentivized to make claims that may or may not be true. And without the, in the absence of evidence, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I'm not willing to just discount somebody's career and all that of which they've offered to society. Maybe not an actor. I don't know if that what you'd call that is contributing to society. I'm not willing to discount it out of hand for he said, she said. I'm not.
Mm-hmm. Is Piers Morgan a psyop to make getting canceled cool? Because, I mean...
Piers Morgan uncensored.
Cancel culture.
We're going to cancel culture.
With our major corporation.
Like...
Seriously.
I don't think that he's accomplished anything in the direction of canceling cancel culture with his show.
So they also talk about her lying about his alcohol and drug use. Another thing, unless he did something illegal while using drugs and alcohol, he can use all the drugs and alcohol he wants. That is none of my business. I do not care. I do not. Like, I do not look for, that's the problem. We're in an age now where celebrities are looked at as moral imperatives when they're literally the opposite of that.
Seriously, dumb.
They're not paragons of virtue, and they're certainly not bastions of high intelligence. The quicker you understand that, the easier it will be to accept that their flaws do not make them bad at their craft, but also do not make them worthy of any type of reverence.
But the question now is, like, who is worthy of reverence?
I don't know who.
We need someone.
Well, this
Jane Font.
Do you think this goes back to the destruction of family, and that we no longer look up to people that are actually in our lives, and instead we look to the digital space for people to mirror our lives after, rather than those in our actual inner circle?
I mean, read classics. I don't know. Read classics.
I'm saying, like,
what about real people?
What about your mom and your dad? Like, were your mom and your dad good people? Did they raise you well?
There's so much division sown between the generations at this point.
Yes.
Now the only people of an older generation you're allowed to revere are the celebrity class.
There's usually one cool teacher. I know most. By the way, I am not of the mind that most teachers are paragons of society. But, you know, if you have like one decent one that actually cares, like that's a good example, you know?
Yeah. I also want to talk a little bit about Thomas Jane, because he's one of those people that you could tell he's probably like, maybe this is not the right thing to say, but he's probably secretly super based, because he keeps to mostly like promotional material on his Twitter. He doesn't talk about politics all the time, but I think he kind of like, he went a little bit further than he normally would on this, and I kind of like a lot of what he had to say here. So it says that he opened up more than usual in a candid interview with MovieWeb, not a site I would want to open up with, and they're all too happy to smear. They're like We've Got This Covered, or any of these sites that love to smear anything. So it says he was talking about Slayers, which is a new movie he's got coming out, and he was talking about the excoriation of free speech in America. He says he questioned narratives surrounding the science. He says, we read about the public space and worried those who offer conflicting opinions find themselves silenced by big tech. The second he said that, I'm surprised he wasn't like, that they didn't write a separate article just ragging on him. But even now, it's kind of a little bit more safe than it would have been a year ago to talk about stuff like this, right? Like,
and it draws more attention if your career is in a lull.
I don't think his is. He works very consistently.
Thomas Jane, but for someone like a Piers Morgan.
So his quote is this.
That's what I suspect, because if you have been a perpetrator of cancel culture in the past, where you were the one twisting people's words and demonizing them based on their viewpoints, and then you claim to be the hero coming to reverse that, I don't believe you.
Nobody lives up to that actual moral standard. So he says, who are the sources? Who's backing this up? Is there any science behind it? What is the science? Who's paying for the science? Is it being twisted to serve the purposes of a grander machine? And I think he says, any one of us can really wrap our minds around how grand that machine is that is manipulating us. But we're seeing that as why our people are getting canceled, because they're not lying. Most of them because they're telling the truth. And they're uncomfortable truths that are being shielded from us for a reason, simply because they're very, very powerful.
This next quote is pretty boomer. He said, there's been no greater time for democracy than the present moment with the technology that we have. In fact, that's become so dangerous to folks that we are now being excised from access to the truth.
He could have left democracy out of that and it would have been fine. But that's
people
us being...
don't want democracy, clearly. When cancel culture is at its peak, they're looking for a strong man, a dictator, to tell them what is true and what is false. They don't want to have to make up their mind for themselves. And that's really the point of democracy, is that each person has a civic duty to educate themselves. That is the last thing that people want to do now. That's why both cancel culture and then a mirrored movement on the other side of the aisle is looking for some authoritarian structure.
Yeah. And to be fair, like, society is now structured in a way that keeps you so busy with having to work your 2 jobs. You got to raise your kids. You're
fatigued to the point where that doesn't resonate with you anymore. You're deciding power in your nation.
They realized a long time ago that the newsreader on TV had way more power than they understood originally, because first of all, you're accepting what they say is true. I mean, trust in the media has never been lower than it is right now, but you're putting a lot of faith there. And now compound that with all of the celebrities that are used to hawk every type of mainstream opinion about anything, not even just politics, but just social issues in general. He also says, when he's talking about climate change, and I thought that was kind of like, I imagine like he just doesn't want to talk about it, but he gets into it. He says, you don't have to be right. In fact, if you're wrong, and if you're able to bounce that off people, the feedback you get will generally lead you towards the truth. Most people don't want to have that back and forth. They don't. They want to be told that they're right from somebody else. The best thing you can do in that case is to either be willing to discuss things openly and honestly, or just just say, I believe what I believe, you believe what you believe, and if there's some power in understanding that you're not going to change my mind. Is that the most rational path forward? Not necessarily, but if that's what you need to get through the day, then that's what you need to get through the day. But we're burdened with the amount of information that we're kind of assaulted by every day. You're also looked at as bad now for not seeking out more information all the time, when in reality, people are just busy.
It's because there's two types of people. There's people that are fascinated with alternate points of views and they genuinely want to understand them. And there's people that want to give uninterrupted sermons.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I don't even think people want to be told that they're right, like you said, Brett. I think they also, like Dane was pointing out earlier, want to be like publicly humiliated for being wrong.
Oh, I don't know. I don't believe that in this context. I believe that in the I'm guilty of original sin. I'm white. I'm straight. I'm from the suburbs. I think those people.
It's all connected.
I think those people want to be told that they're bad for something that they can't control because it's out of their control. Well, what was I supposed to do? I acknowledge my role in ruining society, but I didn't play a role in it.
It's different flavors of the same fetish. Because so that one is that's how they get their jollies, and the other one is they feel like the counterculture, and when everyone's like, God, just shut up, they're like, you're justifying my point.
They also talk about how he was in the movie Run, Hide, Fight, which was a movie about a school shooting, which apparently is like a taboo subject. And it got me thinking. I was watching a trailer for a movie from 2020 that never came out, starring Jim Caviezel, called The Sound of Freedom. And it was a movie about human trafficking, about a guy who goes overseas. He's like a diplomat, he's like a national security agent or something, like an NSA agent or something that goes overseas. And it's based on a true story. I can't remember the name of the guy it's based on. And he goes overseas to save someone's brother from like a human trafficking ring, or his sister from a human trafficking ring. And the movie had an insane time trying to find financing and then find distribution, because Hollywood doesn't want to address, this would have gone plenty well while talking about Balenciaga. They don't want to shine a light in those corners. And there's a whole market now for movies for something like that, even if it's Run, Hide, Fight, where that's maybe taboo, but not quite as taboo as human trafficking, where there's these stories, there's a whole wealth of stories to be told in an industry that we talk about being creatively bankrupt. There's a whole industry that could be, all these stories that could be told that just won't.
Well, I'm not so sure about that, because look at She Said. That's attempting to tell a story in which Hollywood doesn't look so good. And still, Brad Pitt is getting flamed in the media because he himself is not a perfect example in the Me Too movement. He's being accused as well of abuse and misogyny.
But Me Too is pro-media. Was pro-media and human trafficking.
It's about valorizing journalists. It's not about standing up for victims of abuse. And it's not about holding Hollywood accountable, because the whole point of Me Too in the first place seemed to be turning the blame around on other industries.
Or
and
regular people.
Not acknowledging that Hollywood is a special, exceptional case where abuse is far more rampant in that world than it is in the rest of society. It's just a fact. And they were never willing to turn the blame around on themselves. They had to turn it on ordinary people.
Yep.
I'm really shocked by just the polarization reacting to Helena Bonham Carter's statements, because they're so milquetoast, in my opinion.
It's very like
these tweets are just like mind blowing. That people feel this strongly about it.
But it's anything with J.K. Rowling brings out the crazies.
Someone said to Johnny Depp stands, if you're celebrating Helena Bonham Carter's comments, you're a TERF. There's no separating the two. Just a reminder.
Beware of anyone that gives you ultimatums or binaries. You're either this or that when it comes to social points.
Gosh, and on the other side,
That's a
someone
cute
said,
refrain.
Helena Bonham Carter is an icon, a legend, a talented actress, whereas Amber Heard is an irrelevant, low-tier, shitty actress. So there's that.
Damn.
Just like, I don't feel any type of way about these people.
Yeah.
Was she ever high tier?
Who? Amber Heard?
Amber
Yeah.
Heard?
She was on
She was
her
big.
way up. She was making inroads, especially around the time that Batman vs Superman was getting made. And
Aquaman was a big deal.
She was like the it chick for a week.
yeah. When Aquaman came out and when she played Mira in Batman vs Superman, she had her cred. But now she's kind of been replaced by who do you think who's her replacement now? Who's the Amber Heard?
Zendaya? Or what?
Oh, maybe it can be Madeline Klein
Yeah,
from
she's hot.
Knives Out, Glass Onion.
Yes, she's
Who?
she's
That would be a
good-looking.
good replacement.
There's
for Amber
an
Heard.
actress that was in Glass Onion named Madeline Klein who was very, very attractive. Very
Looks like
attractive.
Florence Pugh a little bit. Here, another tweet says Helena Bonham Carter is a piece of S. Helena Bonham Carter defends wife beater and R-wordist Johnny Depp. Holding your
Wow.
abuser accountable is apparently just a trend to her.
See, no proof. Like I said,
She's
reality.
disgusting.
Reality is inconvenient to these people.
Helena Bonham Carter is another actor who entertained us, and then their work, it turns out to be a dummy clown who's detached from reality and ignorant as hell.
Is it a little
Wow.
postmodernist of me to wonder, like, why do all of these people think that everybody else is detached from reality? Like, everybody thinks that everybody else is detached from reality.
Because everyone's reality is right now individual reality, and if someone does not conform to that, they automatically become an NPC within your simulation.
Even in my framing, like I think of somebody who uses those words to describe Johnny Depp after a trial that clearly showed that at the very least, there was no proof that he was any of that. Like that reality is inconvenient to them.
Dude, the people that are making these accusations, none of them, it's like source, I made it up. Like, definitely. Like, these are those kind of people.
There was a meme over the weekend. I think James Lindsay might have posted. It was like R word and P word are evil, and then the guy, it's like the NPC, like the angry NPC. It's a source ? Like that's the world we live in now. Like you're so controlled that you need to, like they're so used to like intellectualizing their way into awful conclusions that they will just take it to the worst place possible.
That's why I was
There's no
telling you about
consequence.
that Stephen King thread where
Yeah.
there are legitimately people defending Stephen King's inclusion of what can only be described as a child orgy in it, because Stephen King happens to be annoying on Twitter and woke people like him. So anything he does, excusable.
He is particularly annoying. He's one of the worst.
Yeah.
Him
He's-
and Rob
him and
Reiner.
Rob Reiner,
Him and
yes.
Rob Reiner just actually that stuff kind of gives me a little bit of hope. Whenever I see like they're like, oh, look at the backlash on Twitter. As long as it's like the same 10 people responding, I do think like they don't have as much power. Like they have more power than they have people. Like it's like if you have to use the same 5 to 10. If I have to see Mark Ruffalo as an example for crappy Twitter responses all the time, how
the
many
worst.
people are there that actually think that way?
There
Like,
should
if
be
it's-
a rule.
If
Like,
it's Rob Reiner, Stephen King, Mark Ruffalo,
and Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill, Chris Evans from time to time, it's like the same 5 to 10 people.
Have you guys seen that viral tweet that basically says women are a hive mind? They can only reason abstractly in the context of the hive, and like anything outside of that is not real. Like then then a woman replied to that and said, according to who? And then they said like, see, you're still doing it.
Yeah.
Like it's exactly that. And I even see this in the conversation about Amber Heard and Helena Bonham Carter, where all they can resort to is comparing their viability as a sex symbol when we should be talking about the issue at hand. So this person says, Helena Bonham Carter can still get acting roles at any age and will have no problem in the future. She has talent and looks. Amber Heard was pretty at one time, but now all anyone sees when they look at her is the abuser that literally crapped the bed.
I was gonna say, actually
her
what they
sex
see is-
symbol days are over. Like, it's just not true. And we need to focus on the issue at hand if we actually take abuse and domestic violence seriously. It's fine for Amber Heard to be conventionally attractive and a bad person, believe it or not.
This is the kind of the downside of the internet, though, right? Is all arguments kind of devolve into ridiculousness. It never stays on point. Or like, my favorite thing is I do have the guilty pleasure of, like, I don't like responding on the internet, but I do end up doom scrolling and reading people argue for like longer than I should. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh man, you got him good with that one.
As long as you're enjoying yourself while you read the argument,
but it gets with me.
That's fine.
But it gets to me mentally. It's not good brain food. It's not good for me to do that. And I acknowledge that as one of my shortcomings is my interest in like watching people. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't see that argument coming. Good job. Like shoving popcorn into your face. Like
without getting too into the details, this weekend was not the easiest for us on that front.
No, it was not. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.